Greetings once more, fellow meters, and welcome back to the channel for another in-depth exploration of once humans' most potent builds. Today we're resurrecting a legend and giving it a modern twist with my guide to the MG4 Predator Weakspot Build. This isn't just about nostalgia, it's about demonstrating how this classic approach, when optimized with the right armor, the most synergetic food buffs, the key deviants, and the absolute top tier modifications, can not only hold its own but absolutely dominate the latest and most challenging nightmare content. Prepare to be amazed as we unlock the full potential of the MG4 Predator, showcasing its ability to reach a staggering peak DPS of 320,000, accumulating in an unbelievable total damage output exceeding 6 million after just a mere 3 magazines. So settle in, perhaps prepare a refreshing beverage and some tasty snacks, because you won't want to miss a single detail on how to transform this iconic weapon into a true apex predator of the battlefield. So now let's take a look at the main weapon of this build, the MG4 Predator. It has a 40% chance to trigger Fast Gunner when hitting the enemy. Whenever Fast Gunner stacks reach a multiple of 5, gain unlimited ammo for 0.5 seconds. Hitting the same target consecutively grants weapon damage plus 2% with each hit, up to plus 60%. Stacks are halved when the target is changed. When the remaining bullets is more than 50% of the magazine capacity, attack plus 40%. For my calibration, I'm running a rapid shot style for fire rate plus 10%, accuracy minus 50, fire rate plus 10% after continuous fire for 2 seconds, with a double weak spot damage suffix. Now let's take a look at the keyword Fast Gunner and see what it does. So it's a continuous buff. While skill is in effect, each stack grants fire rate plus 1% and attack plus 1%. For 2 seconds, effect can stack up to 5 times. And for the accessories, I am running the hammer compensator for my muzzle, compact reflex sight for my optic, tactical laser sight for my tactics, large LMG drum mag for my magazine, and I'm running tungsten AP LMG ammo. This gives me a stability rating of 65, accuracy of 72, range of 45, and a reload speed of 28. For my secondary, I decided to choose the Bingo as I want to utilize the 2 bottom traits. It has a 70% chance to trigger the bullseye on the weak spot hit. After switching to this weapon, the first hit will trigger the bullseye. These are the 2 traits that I'm interested in. Grants weak spot damage plus 15% on hit for 10 seconds, effect can stack up to 3 times. So in total, that gives me 45% weak spot damage. And then after defeating an enemy with a weak spot hit, attack plus 15% for 20 seconds. For my calibration, I'm running a rapid shot style with bolt pulling speed plus 40%, reload speed plus 50%, and attack minus 10%, with a double weak spot damage suffix. Next, let's take a look at the keyword, the bullseye, and see what it does. So it's a continuous debuff. Highlight marked targets will be outlined and suffer from vulnerability plus 8% for 12 seconds. This in turn means that they do receive 8% extra damage. For my accessories, I'm using range compensator for my muzzle, large optic sight for my optic, tactical SR mag for my magazine, and tungsten AP ammunition. This gives me a stability rating of 99, accuracy of 71, range of 80, and a reload speed of 57. So next, let's look at some damage testing. So during my raw damage, I hit a total of 125,000 DPS and a total damage output of over 1 million. This was achieved with just 1 magazine. So after applying bullseye and gaining the 45% weak spot damage from the Bingo, my grand total DPS comes out at 162,000. And my grand total damage output is 1.3 million. Again, this is achieved with just 1 magazine. So now let's add Lone Wolf Whisper into the mix and see how our numbers come out. So with Bullseye, 45% Bingo and Lone Wolf Whisper, my total DPS is 241,000 and my total damage output is 1.9 million. Just tips over to 2, but that is from the dog, not the gun. Alright, so when fully buffed with Bullseye, the significant 45% weak spot damage from Bingo, Lone Wolf Whisper, and the mixed fried hot dog, my initial total DPS clocks in at a jaw-dropping 320,000. Even after unleashing an extra 2 full magazines, the sustained DPS remained incredibly strong at 180k on the second magazine, and then down to 160k on the third magazine, resulting in a colossal total damage output exceeding 6 million within just 3 magazines. Here you can see my stats. I have a total weak spot damage of 133.1, weapon damage of 191.8, damage against elites of 32.5, boss of 16%, common enemies of 46, another boss of 32.5%, and targets affected by Bullseye of 27.5. Here you can see my cradle. I have anti-coherence, anti-phase, tactical combo, deviant energy defense, chaotic thoughts, steady hand, marked strike, and fast pursuit. Alright everyone, I'd like to take a quick moment to extend a big thank you to all my subscribers and viewers. I truly appreciate the incredible support you've been shown. If you're enjoying the content I'm creating, please feel free to leave a like, drop a comment, or maybe even consider subscribing to stay up to date with all my once human builds and helpful tips. On that note, let's get right back to the build. Next, let's talk about the buffs that are being used. So for our food buff, I am running mixed fried hot dog, used to increase damage by 20% towards enemies affected by the Bullseye. For this, you'll need 1 piece of meat, 2 deviated mushrooms, and 2 corn oil. I advise to try and get hold of the Mameg Advanced Stove Gourmand, or get somebody to lay this for you, as you gain a 30% base effect from the dish itself. Next, let's take a look at the Deviant, Lone Wolf Whisper, Lunar Oracle version. Autonomously attacks enemy targets and attracts the aggro from nearby enemies. When a target dies, it spawns a clone, increases weapon damage received by the attacked target by 43.2%. This is due to mine being a skill rating of level 5. So now that buffs and deviants are out of the way, let's take a look at the armor sets that I'm using for this build. So my main 3 pieces are from Tetris Tights. For weapon damage reduction of 10%, when HP is below 70%, weapon damage and status damage plus 12%. And for 3 pieces, the HP reduction from low sanity is decreased by 40%. Weapon and status damage plus 10% and further increases as your sanity drops up to 28% at 30% max sanity. With these 3 pieces of armor, I gain 50% weapon damage. I'm not worried about the status damage, but the 50% weapon damage just from the armor is a good increase for this style of gun. For my 2-piece armor set, I am running Renegade for reload speed of 15% and weak spot damage of 10%. And for my key armor, I'm running Oasis Mask. Fast gunner max stacks plus 10 and attack plus 1% per stack. This in turn lets you get up to a maximum of 20 stacks, so you will gain 20% attack. Next, let's talk about the mods that really bring this build together. So for my MG4 Predator, I am using Precision Rush with the Fast Gunner suffix. When Fast Gunner is active, increase weak spot damage for 3 seconds up to 45%, with the aptitude effects of when in Fast Gunner state, weapon damage plus 8%, damage against elite enemies plus 6%, damage against normal enemies plus 10%, And when in fast gunner state, weak spot damage plus 7%. Ideally, you want to get both fast gunner states to tier 5 and then have your X types of damage enemies as high as you can possibly get 'em. For my bingo, I am running vulnerability amplifier with the bullseye suffix. The bullseye adds vulnerability plus 8% with the aptitude effects of weak spot damage on target with the bullseye plus 9.6, weapon damage reduction plus 2.4%, damage against normal enemies plus 4%, and damage against elite enemies plus 3%. For my helmet mod, I am running precise strike with the precision suffix. Hitting a weak spot grants weak spot damage plus 12% for 3 seconds. Effect can stack up to 3 times. With the aptitude effects of weak spot damage plus 9%, weapon damage plus 6%, damage against elite enemies plus 4.5%, and magazine capacity plus 7.2%. Ideally, the only thing I would change on this mod would get rid of the magazine capacity and replace it with either damage against great ones or damage against normal enemies. For my mask mod, I am running Blitzkrieg with the fast gunner suffix. Fast gunner stacks plus 5 and additional fire rate plus 1% for each stack. With the aptitude effects of when in fast gunner state, weapon damage plus 6.4%, damage against normal enemies plus 8%, head damage reduction plus 1.6%, and when in fast gunner state, weak spot damage plus 9.6%. Again, you ideally want to get both fast gunner states to tier 5 and then both have 2 types of damage against enemies and get them as high as you possibly can. Next is the chest mod, and for that I like to use Ardent Shield with precision suffix. While the shield is active, you gain 15% damage reduction. When the shield exceeds 1000 single instances of damage, they will not penetrate the shield. There's a bit of a translation issue with that. But I find that running Ardent Shield gives you just that little bit more survivability as you are running a low health, high risk sort of build. And with the aptitude effects of weak spot damage plus 9%, weapon damage plus 2.4%, damage against normal enemies plus 8%, and reload speed bonus of 9.6%. For my legs mod, I am running Bullet Siphon, again with the precision suffix. For weapon damage plus 5%, every 5 bullets consumed in a magazine grants plus 4% weapon damage, capped at 20%. With the aptitude effects of weak spot damage plus 7.2%, damage against normal enemies of plus 6%, damage against elite enemies plus 6%, and weapon damage plus 6%. Ideally, I would have liked to take 1 tier off of damage against elite enemies and replace it onto weak spot damage so that I had tier 5 on the weak spot damage and tier 5 on the weapon damage, and then 2 tier 3s on both damage against enemies. For my gloves mod, I like to use weak spot damage boost with the precision suffix. Weak spot damage plus 25% with the aptitude effects of weak spot damage plus 9%, weapon damage plus 6%, damage against normal enemies plus 4%, and magazine capacity plus 9.6%. Again, the only thing I'd change about this mod would remove magazine capacity and put a damage against elite or damage against great ones. And last but not least, for my shoes mod, I like to use Rush Hour with the precision suffix. Every 10% HP loss grants plus 4% melee, weapon, and status damage, with the aptitude effects of weak spot damage plus 9%, damage against great ones plus 6%, damage against elite enemies plus 6%, and weapon damage plus 2.4%. Again, ideally, I would like to take 2 levels off of damage against great ones and 1 level off of damage against elite enemies and transfer them to weapon damage, which would give me tier 5 in weapon damage and tier 5 in weak spot damage. Alright everyone, and on that note, I'd like to extend a massive thank you to each and every one of you who watched and stayed until the end. I truly appreciate your time and support. If you feel like you enjoyed the video or even learned something new, Please feel free to leave a like, drop a comment, or maybe even consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any of my new Once Human build guides. Until next time, metters, stay safe out there.